Beats by Lonze back in the building. 24 hours with the MKS MKSREC1 is a 12-bit sampling drum machine that is made off of the SP1200. Now, for y'all who know, I had never had an SP1200, and the first machine that I got that spoiled me with an SP1200 is the Isla Instruments S2400. Now, I ain't gonna say nothing bad about this machine. This machine is built really tough. It is in pristine condition. The buttons are really well made. The machine is really well made. The sound is really well made. But now I understand. There's a lot of old producers that get mad with producers of the day of today of how easy it is to they think that it's easy to go into Ableton and to go in the machine and go into the MPC and sample in the MPC. And you know what? Compared to the 4000 and those old machines, they are absolutely correct to be mad because they had to work in Stone Ages and work in the dark. I do not like to work in the dark. Let me tell you, I got a video coming. Probably going to be after this video where I do the comparison of the S2400 versus the SP1200. And there was a reason why I didn't spend that bread to get the SP1200, the Rossum, because I kind of figured that I was going to be working in the Stone Ages and in the dark. And I can tell you right now, the S2400 really did that thing to bring that machine out of the Stone Ages and bring it to a concept to where, for me personally, I can see where I'm at and what I'm doing, and I don't have to fight in the dark. So now I tell you, I understand. I understand those producers from the late 80s and the early 90s that was talking about these producers that are coming in and never had to work on one of these machines, because you had to be really good and know what you're listening to and know how to put the sounds into this machine and chop, because it is not as easy as everybody thinks. And I can tell you that if I had a choice between chopping in an SP1200 or any similar clone of the machine or any machine of that nature, I'm going to pick NPC, or I'm gonna pick the S2400 because S2400 is solid. It is easy. Um, Again, this is my first 24 hours with it. Really solid build. I'd give it, for anybody that wants the SP1200. This is a great alternative to it, and I do recommend it. However, if you never touched one and you just want to feel what it feels like to be back in the Stone Ages, then to me, this is what it feels like to be back in the Stone Ages, because you can't really see where you are, and you have no file, no file and click on the mouse to save you when you somewhere and you don't know where you at. So yeah, first looks, really good machine. I got my lights off so you can't see really well, but it's a really great machine. All right, what's up, family? Beats by Lonze back in the building. I know this is a long-awaited video that y'all been waiting for. Today, we are talking about something special and near and dear to my heart. Now, y'all know that I just got the MKSREC1, and y'all know that the Isla Instruments S2400 is one of my favorite machines in the world. It's top 3 in my studio. Now, this is what I want to tell you just before we get started. If you haven't already liked, comment, and subscribe to my channel, go ahead and do so right now. And then when you do that, come back to the video because we got some stuff to discuss. Now, let me tell you, this video is not going to be about whether you should buy or whether you should fly on either the MKSREC1 or the Isla Instruments S2400. I'm just going to give you the details and the specs and what I know about the machines first hand. All right, because a lot of people don't have their hands on this machine and they just don't know. All right, first thing I'll tell you, and there are a lot of SP1200 machines out there. I believe there's 4 or maybe 5 at this moment. There's also a one in development that is supposed to be a controller of sorts. At this moment, I can't think of the name of it, but I do have it as a freaking app and a plugin on my laptop, and you're able to use that as SP1200 player or playlist. I don't know what you call it, but you're able to use it like a VST. But anyway, I think that's gonna really be good for the market when they hit that with a controller, because you'll be able to plug it into the computer, and that's for our hybrid computer and controller people. All right, let's get to the meat and potatoes. Now, I've been getting a lot of questions about how does one machine sound versus the other machine. Now, I will tell you that there's a couple things you want to take into consideration. So let's talk about these things we want to talk about and take into consideration. Now, we know that both machines are made on a 12 and 16-bit DAC configuration. So that means that with that being in the consideration, they are both going to sound the same. But there's going to be some subtle differences between the two. And I'll tell you right now that the one thing off the top of my head that I can tell you is that the workflow is what is going to make me have a difference of opinion between the two machines. Just straight up, I can tell you that the workflow on the Isla S2400 is incredible. I've never seen anything so intuitive and so fast that I'm able to make a beat. Let me tell you this. When I first got the S2400, I made my first beat in the first 24 hours, and it was one of the hardest beats I ever made on a machine. And I had no idea of really how to use a machine. I just had watched some of the videos, the video tutorials online, and I kind of had a familiarity of what was on the machine, but nothing beats having the machine in front of you. And that was my preparation for getting ready to make beats on that machine. But anyway, I made some fire beats the first week on that machine, and I've been making fire beats ever since on the S2400. Now, I've had the MKSREC1 for 2 days, for 48 hours, and today I made some pretty good stuff. So I'm learning the system. I'm learning how it works, but I can tell you it is nothing compared to the S2400. Now, that's all I'll say about the comparison about the two, about whether I like one over the other. Now, let's talk about it. Getting started with this machine, I give the Isla Instruments the win for getting started with the machine. Now, here's the thing that you got to understand. You need to prepare for these machines. You need to make sure that your sounds are on your SD cards. You need to make sure that everything that you need to get ready to work on these machines are there. You need to make sure that your sounds are consolidated so that when you press record, you know exactly what it is that you're envisioning to hear on these machines. Now, number 2, making music. Now, in this category, I talked about, or in this category, what I brought to the table was that what's the ease of use and the time that you need in front of the machine. So in that voting process, I took that into consideration. Now, can you add synths? Is there any other additional functions that can happen in these machines? And in this machine, the Isla S2400 took the cake because there is the DSP card, and you also have a Caladan that's coming that's going to be able to have voice cards and stuff in it to attach to the S2400. So it's expandable. Now, sampling, both of them you're able to sample in it. No computer needed, except for you're going to do updates. So you're going to need a computer to do the updates in both machines. They are standalone in a sense, but you need to plug it into power. And then, does the machine have MIDI implementation? Which it does. So in this category, the Isla S2400 won to me for the fact of making music. Now let's move on to the education required. That is my third column. In this column, what I took into consideration was what type of training did I need to make beats on these machines. Now, the training is not very extensive, but you do need time and you do need patience to work on both of these machines. You do need to spend time in these machines, and I spend a lot of time on the Isla Instruments S2400. And I have not spent as much time with the MKSREC1 because obviously I just told you I just had it, just got it in the last 48 hours, and I never ever have touched the SP1200 before. So that kind of tells you that there's going to be some type of mental education, and then we'll talk about musical intelligence next because you need some type of musical intelligence to make these machines work. There's video manuals available online for the Isla Instruments, and that's just because the S2400 has been on the market for a lot longer than this MKSREC1 has, and so they've had more time to implement and put those things in place so that you are able to learn about the machine via some video manuals. And that's one of the things I've been trying to do is get out there as well, as long as to be a asset to the visual manual, just to show people my way of making beats on the Isla S2400, because that's my way. That's how I do it. You don't have to make it the way that I make it, but that's the way I make it. So let's move on to the next category. This is our fourth category, musical intelligence. Do you need to have a musical intelligence to make beats on this machine, on either of these machines? And I'll tell you that you do need to have some knowledge required of music and the mechanics of making beats. All right, so there is knowledge required for the workflow. I had to read the manuals. I had to go and watch YouTube tutorials. So you're gonna have to do the same thing. Deploying the implementation, that's just how you're gonna get in front of a machine and decide to make the type of music that you want to make, and that includes your sound choices and design, your picking of sounds. I will tell you that in all of this beat making thing, it comes down to your beat selection and your sound selection. So that's going to make and shape your sound that you want for these two machines. Now, going back to the education required, I did give Isla S2400 the win in that category because of mainly because you had video manuals of how to work the machine prior to the machine coming out, and you know the MKS Rec couldn't really compete in that category because they didn't have much info about the machine out, much videos of people having the machines yet, because it's built piece by piece, one by one. And but shout out to Poisa for making this machine and working, crafting it as diligently as they have, being articulate, making sure that the machines match what it's supposed to match, and then they did a great job on it. So back to musical intelligence and education required. I think specifically for me that there has to be a place that you need to go online for resources and to get educated on these machines. Now, let me say this. SP1200 community is really, really quiet about how they make music. But those that want to teach, they're out there, and they are able to be found on either Facebook groups or YouTube. There are some, but there's not a plethora of them. There's not a lot of experts that's showing their workflow. It's a lot of people showing, hey, this is what I made in 1985 and blah, 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 blah. This is what I made in the 90s, got placed on this album, blah, 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 blah. There's just a few teachers that are teaching on this platform. Now, for musical intelligence, I gave both the Isla S2400 and the MKSREC1 a tie. And then we'll go into the pros and cons next, which I also rated them both a tie. Now, again, I'm not going to tell you whether you should buy one or the other. I'll tell you, if you want the Isla S2400, you buy it. If you want the MKSREC1 because you want to have a SP1200, I don't want to say clone, but if you want to have a machine that is like the SP1200, this is the closest that you're going to get as far as form factor and looks. Now, the Isla Instruments S2400 is a whole total another beast. Total another beast. Let's talk about the pros and cons, and then we're gonna wrap this up. The Isla S2400, as I told y'all before, is expandable, and as I said before, you're able to go between the 12-bit engine and the 16-bit engines on both of these machines, and it supports the 16-bit playback. Now, the size, this machine for the MKSREC is smaller than the OG version of the SP1200. I don't have the specs, but you can look that up yourself. There is tutorials available. The Isla Instruments S2400 has more sampling time. I believe it is 24 minutes of sampling time. But it's up there. And the MKSREC, I think you have up until 8 seconds. And then there's a continuous learning loop that you have to learn on both machines. And these machines are studio use only. Again, like we said earlier, they are not standalone. You want to keep these in your studio, and it is a tie when we talking about these two machines with each other. Now, let's talk about the specs. If you look at this freaking side-by-side comparison, you will see all the specs for the Isla S2400, and you'll see all the specs for the MKSREC1. I am not going to go through all the specs of this machine. You are able to read it for yourself, but again, like I said, the information is there. So we'll leave this on the screen for a few minutes so you can actually look at it. I would advise you, if you don't want to go to the Isla Instruments page and look for it, if you don't want to go to the MKSREC1 Electronics Limited page and look for the specs, take a screenshot of this page right here and it'll give you all the information. But I'll tell you, piece for piece, the machines are almost identical as far as the makeup of how they made these machines. Now, the only difference is that on the MKSREC1, you are able to take the OG files and you're able to open them up on MKSREC. And on the Isla S2400, you're not able to do that. You're not able to take the old OG files and open it up. Now, there was some talk a while ago about Isla Instruments bringing that to the platform to have like some type of drive bay that they could make, or like an external hard drive or whatever that you can plug into it to open up your projects. But I think that was scrapped somewhere down in the line of making a machine, because again, this is a new machine geared for a different workflow. Now, I'll tell you, I love the workflow on the S2400. I'm beginning to love the workflow on the MKSREC1. However, nothing beats that screen they have on the Isla Instruments S2400. Because right now, I believe it's down there in the spec somewhere. I believe it's 3 inches. I think it's 3 by 3. But I don't see it right now. But it is a big screen. I can tell you it's bigger than the SP1200. It's bigger than the ROSM. It's bigger than the MKSREC screen. I can tell you that right off the bat. All right. So if y'all have any questions about the machine other than whether I would pick one or the other, I have both. So I'm not going to pick one or the other. I'm going to use both, and I'm going to use them the way that they're intended to be used. All right. So I know a lot of you would like to Many people want to know how the S2400 compares to the MKSREC1. So I can just tell you straight up, when I come into the studio, I just cut the power on. You see that? Automatically, we are greeted with our pattern screen. We automatically are ready to make beats because the S2400 remembers the last kit that you placed as a default. There you go. It remembers your last saved kit. So that should be another different clap. But anyway, I can immediately get to making beats right now based off of my saved kit that's already there. Now, you probably can do that on the SP1200 too. I don't know how to do that just yet. But right now, I can make a beat in like 45 seconds just by the press of 3 buttons. So the first thing I do is I go to pattern length. I make my pattern 8 bars. I hit record and run. And this is why I'm spoiled. All right, simple drum pattern, right? And I probably make beats different than everybody else, but the easiest way for me is to start out with my drums and then browse and find my samples, or get the record player and sample in my sample. But I have a lot of freaking samples on my SD card, so I'm gonna use them. All right, so we're gonna go to. Just gonna pick one. So I just press the pad. It says assign the pad. Yep. Assigned it. It's done. It's right there. And then what I'm gonna do is go main mode and loop slice. And what that's gonna do is put that sample across 8 pads. Now, if I wanted to do something different and do pitch, here's the other thing that makes the S2400 special. You got step program. So now I can go into my step program and see every note that I just hit on every pad, and I can adjust those notes in S2400. Now, most of the SP1200 machines don't have that function to where you can move around your notes and you can see where your samples hit. This is what I say when I say working in the dark, working blind. I don't like to work blind. I like to be able to be visual and see something. So those are the key factors that I like about the S2400. And plus, it has everything on the menu right here. It has everything on the 6 buttons in the menu that you can, get to manipulating your beats that's on your freaking samples. Like I said, it's a 12 and a 16-bit sampler, so you can go to either one of those playback engines and you can get the sound that you desire. It's based off of what sounds you put into the machine. So I won't make too much of a video on the MKSREC1, but I will tell you that I like the machine, and it's gonna take a little bit for me to dig in it. So I'm gonna sit in it for the whole day and see what I can come up with. So check it out. you again for watching this video. Again, if you haven't already, like, comment, and
subscribed.
I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.